Good morning, everyone. I understand there's a controls test on Wednesday. Should we pray for snow or pray that it does not snow? Pray for snow. Okay. We were supposed to have Shireen Pierce from Duke Energy, but she had a very important meeting with some upper management at Duke Energy. So thankfully, my friend and one of our alums, John Petit, we were having lunch, and I said, would you be available in a week and a half to talk to our class? He said, sure. So he is a walk-on, but a wonderful walk-on. And he is also in the entrepreneurship space. So his bio is on the screen, and you can read that. But please welcome John Petit.
Okay, so everybody got an index card. I don't have a presentation today because I wanted to do something a little bit different. I thought it would be more interesting than just standing up here talking. With the index cards, I want you to write down two things, and I want you to do them anonymously. Don't show your friends, ideally, and don't tell anybody what you write on the card. Okay, these two things are one thing that you want in life. I want you to write down really what you want, even if it's something that you don't want other people to know. The second one is you can write down a question for me. In my background, I was a chemical engineer too. I did that for maybe 4 years and switched over to software. When you're done, fold them up. And I'll get some little bags here. We can put them in the bags. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to go through them, and we're going to choose randomly, and then we're going to talk about the thing that somebody wanted in life and what we think might be the most effective way, the fastest way to achieve that. And maybe we'll help somebody. All right, number one, I want to figure out what I want out of my career and what path I want to take next in my post-grad chapter, as I have no idea what it is I want to do. Anybody want to take a stab? Somebody who doesn't know what they want to do. Go for it. Okay, that's a good one. Just get out there and get started. I agree with that.
Be able to live while you do that too.
Okay, so that one's interesting. Just do something, right?
To live while you can do it.
So to live while you can do it. So I will push back on that a little bit. Focus a little bit more directly on the thing that somebody wants. So how do you achieve that specific thing? So I'll give you an example. The older you get, for some of you, this might hit home pretty hard. Let's say somebody says, I want to find a significant other, right? Like, I want a girlfriend, I want a boyfriend, something like that. Okay? Well, if I were to give you advice on that, you need to do a couple very direct things right out of the gate. You need to exercise, you need to eat right, and you need to sleep. So that's kind of what I mean in that the goal of this is to get hyper-focused on what's going to help somebody solve this specific problem. Kind of living at the same time, yeah, that's important, but it won't necessarily directly focus this person. Go ahead. Knowing what you want and putting yourself out there. They don't know what they want, so it's tough, right? I'll start with one statement. The idea of follow your passion, in my opinion, is total BS, right? Don't do that. Instead, go out there and do fundamental things that will allow you to be successful. So for example, sleep, eat right, exercise. Those are fundamental to just about everything. But there are a lot of people out there who think that following their passion means that they do what they want to do. But in the end, there's a lot of corpses lying on the road along that path. Mostly what you want to do is you want to go out there and just start creating value for people. And you'll find that once you figure out how you create value for people, then you'll kind of naturally have come to want to do this. And we've got a ton more to go. How did you go about making the switch from chemi to software, and why? I basically just taught myself software in the evening and weekends after I graduated. I just bought textbooks, read the textbooks, wrote code, just did that for my spare time. Just ground it out. It wasn't fun. That's also why I say don't just find your passion and try and do that, because most of the road of happiness is full of pain and uncomfortable things. I want to own a business that emphasizes efficient improvement of everyday life and stands true to conservative Christian worldviews. The first thing to do in this case, start to go out, talk to people, figure out how to create value. Just figuring out what people will pay you money for. Figure out how to create value. just start creating value. Figure out how you create value for people. You create value. Okay, question for me. If you could go back in time with one sentence written down to give your senior college self, what would it say? That's a good one. That's a good question. I would have said, consider going to Silicon Valley right out of school. That's where money and connections exist. That's just kind of a fundamental piece of life, right? All right, here we go. Everybody's wrong. I'm wrong all the time. I've never done this format before. This is just an experiment for me. So if it totally bombs, well, whatever, I learned something. Oh, I'm sorry. Get an MBA. Sorry. Any other ideas? Summarize that into one sentence for me. And it won't be fun. So just mentally be prepared for that. Okay, 1, supporting family and friends and a stable life. All right, go ahead. Okay, prioritize making time for family and friends. What would allow you to prioritize and make time for family and friends? What I would say is if you want to support friends, family, and a stable life, look at large, relatively stable companies. If I'm gonna roll the dice on how to achieve that, that's what I would do. Okay, one regret that you have. Yeah, so one regret I have is that in high school, I stayed at the high school that I was in instead of going to someplace like NC School of Science and Math or something like that. My high school was not the place for me looking back. All right, next one. I want to be fulfilled in my career. This is a really tough one. Real tough one. Does anybody have any advice on the path that has the highest probability of achieving this for this person? Go for it. Okay, choosing an industry that aligns with your values. Okay, so if my goal was to be fulfilled in my career, what would I do? I would choose I would choose a career path that paid me enough to be stable. I wouldn't choose to go work for a nonprofit. I wouldn't choose to go work for someplace that I'm looking at the other people there and they're struggling to pay bills. The highest probability of being fulfilled in your career is someplace that pays well. Like focusing on being excellent at the thing that you do brings a lot of fulfillment. Again, highest probability, that's what I would do. Go ahead.
What if your source of fulfillment is not from money?
Then you understand yourself better than probably 99% of the other population. But most people will not find that to be the case. When did you get involved in AI? Started having conversations with a friend of mine in the trade space. And he was asking me, how would we use AI to classify goods coming into the United States for import duty compliance? That's kind of when it began. All right, I want to travel the world with my husband and to own a home where I can host my friends and family. This is an interesting one. Find a job that pays decently well, and then you save your money. You save it like there's no tomorrow. You live like you are below the poverty line while you are making good money. I saved my money like crazy right out of school. I drove my now wife completely insane. We didn't have furniture or anything like that in our apartment for years and years. Next one. I want to make a worthwhile painting set / concept. All right, a different one. This one is interesting. A worthwhile painting set. So I'm going to do my best to interpret that. In this case, I'm going to interpret it as, let's say, a set of paints, a set of paint brushes, something like that somebody would want at a specific point in their career of painting, maybe professional. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
If they're discussing like paintings that they're making, producing art, sometimes you have to make bad art to make good art, and so I would say just to do it in order to kind of almost the same as career. Like you have to make crappy paintings in order to get making good paintings. Yep.
Yeah, I think that key point there in what you said is to just do it. All right, next one. A family. This is a very common one, but it's one of the hardest, isn't it? The divorce rate is 50% or more, right? People aren't that good at this, but a lot of people want it. Does anybody have any ideas on how this person can achieve this? Oh, I'm sorry.
Choose a proper significant other.
Choose a proper significant other. Unfortunately, that is one of the worst ways. I'm sorry. And it's because people can't do it. If we could do it, yes. Choosing the right person for you would be the way to do it. But unfortunately, we're terrible. And so it is a misconception that that's how to focus on it. The highest probability path to achieving a family is learn to negotiate. If you can negotiate, and ideally your partner can negotiate, most relationships are just years and years of negotiation. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to ask you, how do you balance your personal life with your career?
For entrepreneurs, you're going to have a rough time. Every company I've started, there has been a time in the beginning of that company where somebody on the founding team is kicked out of their house by their family. And these are not dumb people, right? These are engineers. These are people who could have chosen an easier path. Balancing that is very challenging. There are some fundamental things that you can do. Allocate time and set expectations, such as, hey, this is the day of the week I'm with my kids. So Walt Disney, for example, set Sunday aside where that was family day. And so his family had the expectations and could understand, okay, we get daddy on Sunday. And then every other day of the week, he was Disney's. But it goes back to negotiation, because you have to negotiate those. Go ahead.
So you obviously accomplished a lot. You've spoken to discipline and the monetary drives behind this, but you've also spoken to how much resistance, and you used the word pain, you've been through with it. So I feel like there has to be something more that's driven you to pursue this path.
People who end up being entrepreneurs, we're not particularly normal. We're not normal to the degree that when you go interact with like normal people, you can kind of feel weird because they're not accustomed to just the level of weirdness that we all have. In order to not be in pain, we go out and we do crazy stuff that puts us in other forms of pain. I never fit in anywhere. I didn't fit into a corporate environment, that sort of competitive environment, but I really fit into an entrepreneurial environment. And that's where the parts of my brain, the chemicals in my brain that needed to be in entrepreneurship, man, I'm so ready to quit. I could quit tomorrow, Paulo. I swear to God, Paulo, if they do this again, I'm going to quit tomorrow. My brain is the most satisfied. Has anybody here ever climbed a mountain, like a big mountain? First time I ever did a 14er, Mount Shasta in California, it was like a spiritual experience to get to the top. I had like tears running down my eyes. The chemicals that produce that in my brain are what drive me for entrepreneurship. All right. I want to finish writing my book. This one's a pretty simple one. I'm not going to ask for ideas on this. You just need to stop doing anything else other than writing your book. You have to give up other stuff. That's the pretty simple one. Just write your book. Do whatever it takes. You got to knock it out. All right, next one. To be surrounded by people I love. How do you be surrounded by people that you love? This is a really hard one. Go ahead. Stay local. Oh, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. I'm going to put that in the category of learn to negotiate. I know that most of you don't think about it in those terms, but in the end, that's kind of what it all comes down to. Is anybody in here a trained hypnotist? Oh, okay. All right. So nobody's a trained hypnotist. Has anybody ever read a book on hypnotism like Reality is Plastic? Does anybody in here know anything about hypnotism at all? You might be surprised to find that hypnotism is a real thing. It's a real thing because it's in the same school of human interaction as persuasion. Negotiation is in the same school of thought as hypnotism. How do you interact with the brain of the other person in a way that initiates certain actions out of that individual? Initiating certain things in the brains of other people without them having any control over it. And another one would be like pure hypnotism. If you want to be really good at working with the brains of other people, go out and find a good hypnotism class. This is all going back to the negotiation concept, right? Learn to negotiate. Well, you can't be an asshole and be surrounded by people that you love. Unless you have enough money, but that's not people in here, right? So that would be my advice to somebody who wants to be surrounded by people that they love. All right, next one. I want a C8. I don't even know what that is. Who knows the fastest way to get a C8? You could steal it. You could steal it. If you have the right connections, it'll be super easy, right? But I do not recommend it. But it could be the fastest way. It really would be the fastest way if you know the right people. Managing your money is the right answer. But go ahead.
I was going to say you can take an insane interest rate out.
You might not get a loan. If you are capable of getting a loan, could be the fastest way. For most of you, it's probably save your money like crazy. I mean, just think about it. Look, if you make $100,000 a year and you live like you're on food stamps, 2 years and you could buy a Maserati. All right, what is key to success in your opinion? I'm going to answer this question by going back to what I was recently talking about. So, hypnotism, persuasion, things like that. You can use all of that stuff on yourself. And there are many ways to do it. You probably already do some of this without realizing it. Music. Music is a form of hypnotism. That's primarily what music is. That's it. That's primarily what music is. It's a form of hypnotism. One of the most powerful forms of hypnotism is if you can get people to chant together. We like chant and stuff. It was a great time. We were all being hypnotized. They get you to chant together, they got you. They got you. Now, while you're by yourself, you can't necessarily chant with people, right? But let's say you put yourself in a position where you're chanting with people about a habit that you really wanted to instill within yourself. That's not a bad way to do it. Right? When I go to CrossFit RDU, they have specific music on in there because they're hypnotizing you to go harder than you would if there was no music. Okay. Retire to a lake house. All right, so let's think about this in terms of fastest. Right, the fastest way to achieve this, which means that you're doing it young. Who thinks they know the fastest way to do this? Yes, save your money. That's right. They could have done it earlier. You could have done it way earlier. All right, I want to be able to have hobbies and work-life balance when I start working. The fastest way to achieve this one, work-life balance, when you start working, is you just have to prioritize your hobbies, right? You have to force it. Motivated people, people who care, you can kind of get sucked into work. Man, you just have to prioritize. Dude, just put it on the calendar and just don't stay at work until 8 at night. So you could summarize that and think about that in terms of you have to sacrifice work in order to have something else, but that's how you do it. Yes? Oh, sure. Saved money like mad, and my wife was working. I didn't make money for 3 years, and we were okay because of that. So that was it. I just saved money like crazy. Go ahead.
What are some, easiest stuff that you can save money on?
Easiest way to save money. What's a strategy? What's a way to think about it, maybe? My philosophy during those times was to answer questions that would spend any money with the default answer of no. Oh, should we pay for Netflix? Nope.
But did you feel like you had to make a lot of sacrifices?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of it I was working all the time, right? I'd go home in the evenings and I'd work, and then on the weekends I'd work. But, you got to answer a lot of things with no, right? Friends want to go out and do something. How much does it cost? No, sorry. Okay. I hope this was useful. Thanks.